Hello and welcome back to Anastasia Speaks, where sacred spaces are created to heal the invisible scars and build communities of love, whilst illuminating the magic within. I am Anastasia, your host. On today's episode, we have a very special guest who goes by the name of AJ Wone. He is a producer, a father, a poet, a writer, all-time creative, also an actor. Welcome, love. How are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. This is a beautiful way to start off. I love it already.
I'm really grateful for you because you are my first guest. How are you? How are you feeling?
Are we talking to the world or are we talking to me?
We're talking to AJ.
Anytime that I can be on the phone, in the clubhouse, on camera with Anastasia, it's always going to be a treat for me.
It's always a treat. It is always a treat. I'm excited for the ride we're about to go on. You're unprepared. So guys, I don't plan to prepare my guests. I don't tell them the questions because it needs to be raw. We do things uncut. We do things unfiltered. We do things real, as you guys know. Here we have the real conversations, and I'm one unafraid to get deep. So I met AJ on Clubhouse. Let's start there. It's been unpredictable, but also uncanny in the synchronicities that we share or have had since connecting. And I really wanted to get you on the show because there's so much to you, so much that the world hasn't seen of AJ, and I wanted to delve into that a little bit more. So it's been, like I said, lots of synchronicities between AJ and I, and it's kind of led me to believe that we probably have met before. For those of you that believe in past lives, I really do genuinely believe that this is not our first encounter. So this is why it also makes this episode really, really special for me. Here's the thing. It's always laughter with us. It's always so much fun. I don't expect this to be any less. We are going to get really serious and deep at times. This is the dynamic, guys. You're in for a lovely treat. Tell us about how spirituality and poetry intertwine for you, because like I was saying, I met AJ through Clubhouse, through a poetry room, and I heard him spit poetry, and I want you to speak a little bit about how those two intertwine for you. So poetry and your spirituality, and how it's impacted your sense of self.
So we are getting serious early.
Yes.
Okay. Poetry and spirituality for me was not one the whole time that I have been writing. It wasn't until I joined Clubhouse where I was able to deeply dive into focusing on a new kind of subject matter once my mother had passed, and followed by my grandfather. And she had always been my sounding board for most of my poetry, and I knew she would just be gloating over the words and the writing. And to not have that presence anymore, I had to make a decision on whether I was going to live in the past through my poetry, if I was going to grieve in my poetry all the time, or if I was going to reconnect with the spirit of the loved ones, the spirit of my memories, the spirit of the good times in my life, and share this with a new audience, which was the Clubhouse spoken word community and the people there. So poetry took on a different approach on that platform because it was audio. I wasn't on stage. I didn't have to focus on what I was wearing or if my hair was right. It was just straight focus on the lyrical and audible connection with the people. And once I connected with you and got past, the visual. Uh,
AJ, don't start making me blush already.
your room had there was some other rooms there. There was the poems and conversations was a beautiful group of people there. When I entered your room, I was just blown away by your charisma. You had charisma as if you had been there, as if you had been here before. You've lived here for hundreds of years because you had such a comfort level with everybody who came in, and you were very clear on the kind of space that you wanted to keep. And with the way you were adamant about it, it also allowed me to feel immediately uh, comfortable with who you were as a moderator, as a woman. And I said, okay, this will be a good spot and a space here for me to go ahead and flex my position and let this woman know what's going on with this pen over here. So the ego was taking over to be impressive.
Okay, that's
And
honest.
then after that, once you let me know who you were, uh, very much it kind of balanced out. And then as I started to dissolve the ego, the spirit started to kick in because I realized too that it's really difficult to find a level of familiarity with someone that you don't see on a regular basis. Uh, of course, there's a distance between, but there's a knowing that can't be taught or studied. You either know or you don't. And there's just been that connection through the art, through the community, and through who we are internally. And that would be the answer to spirituality and poetry for me.
And would you say that so? Because what I'm understanding, which is new to me, we speak frequently, somewhat, I guess, and it's new to me to hear you say that before Clubhouse, they kind of didn't mesh for you or create what you felt like was a noticeable or conscious meshing, correct? Would I be right
Right.
in saying that?
Right.
And so it's interesting because now it kind of tells me that there's been a journey. For those of you know, I know that AJ's been on a journey. We're all on a journey. I believe we're all on a spiritual journey, and we all have moments where the spirituality and the spiritual um, awareness becomes more obvious and comes to the forefront of how we do things, how we move, and how we say things and what we don't say, right? And so
Right.
in that, um, I think it's a beautiful thing when we can become aware of these things and also articulate them, because it's one thing to go through the motions and it's another to be aware and to be able to articulate them. And that's really been the beauty, so much of the beauty that I've seen with you and with getting to know you is your level of self-awareness, and that forever heightening to a point where you can articulate it really well. and it's somewhat rare for a guy, a really masculine guy, to be so self-aware. It's been beautiful to hear you and to watch you and to experience and observe and witness your growth and the dissolve of the ego for you. It's been really beautiful. I have to say that, and I also have to commend you on being courageous enough to say that, because not everyone's going to admit that, and it takes so much strength and so much self-assurance and self-confidence, real self-confidence, to be able to admit that, come out and say, hey, yo, I was dealing with some things with my ego, and that was really loud, and I'm in a position where I can say I had to check it at the door. On that, then, what would you say, written and spoken word, done for your personal relationships then since Clubhouse? You heard what I said. Should I ask it again?
I did. No, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Do you want me to ask again, or you good?
You can ask again. Let me just go ahead and pay full attention, because I'm just trying to figure out how to answer this. I'm buying some time.
Okay, so the question was, what has written and spoken word done for your personal relationships since Clubhouse?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Didn't do anything. Mm-mm.
Are you sure that's what you want to say? Because I have a follow-up question or two. I'm just going to give you a
follow it on up. I said nothing. Go ahead.
So, okay, since you said nothing, for one, you started off answering the previous question, saying about how meeting me, being on Clubhouse, right? There was a dissolve of the ego, or continuous dissolving. So that's one, right? But that has
it ain't
to
fully dissolved now. Don't act like it's just completely there.
It has to stay there because you're living, right? The ego is there for fight and flight. So I know it ain't going nowhere. It just can't be, center stage all the time. So what I'm saying is, or what I'm asking is, how have you seen that evolution in your personal relationships? There has to have been some sort of difference, some sort of space, some sort of realizations also through being on Clubhouse, sharing your poetry and spoken word, and the personal relationships in your life, and also maybe with other people that you met through Clubhouse.
What is the written and the spoken done for personal relationships? It probably made things a little bit more interesting for
Interesting. Okay, I'm sorry.
It probably made it's gonna be hard to say this without laughing. Okay, I got to go back to the first question, and I got to put a little bit more on that first question.
Okay.
The ego dissolved because my relationship with poetry and spirituality was not there when I was on stage. When I was on stage, you talked about the bravado and the image. I was up there performing. Mm-hmm. I was up there for the attention and just for the bells and whistles of stage, through hip hop and music and things like that. So with that comes the ego, because you're competitive. You have to be the best artist on the stage for the evening. Everybody got to leave talking about you, what you were wearing, the line you hit, how everybody was moving from that piece. Men had to go home and make love to their women, and they say, "Hey man, I'm gonna go make love to my woman because of that piece, man. That was just beautiful, man." And I said, "Yeah, me too. I'm about to get on and do my thing as well." So poetry was different, and then as I matured, it took on a different position because I let my poetry collect dust. I stopped writing for years because I chose fatherhood as my career. And it's very important that as I answered that question, as you moved on to this one, that I evolved as I retired from the craft of writing. I just thought, oh, I'm gonna leave that body dusty in the closet there, and just have it be a point of memory. Oh yeah, I used to do that stuff you doing. I used to write poetry, and it wasn't until Clubhouse rekindling and rebuilding that thirst and that love for it, and then this woman Anastasia, who would give these incredible prompts, something that I would never do, which is writing because someone else gave a title. Ain't nobody gonna have me write. I'm gonna let y'all do it. And folks were writing great poetry from your prompts. I said, well, let me go ahead and do it. See, that's where the ego came back in, like, yo, I got to be the best, the rawest, the dopest that she ever heard. And then it became a point from a memory to now a kind of therapy. Spirit kicking in, therapy kicking in. Now there's a different component physiologically, and the connection that we're talking about would be how we bonded weekly, consistently. So if I would talk about a personal relationship, I would have to speak to how this whole thing bonded us, got us close through you breaking down some of the stuff that I wrote that I didn't want to write. And you would pull that out of me and then kind of lay it out. I'm like, yo, let's move on to the next person. You don't have to break my stuff down, therapist. You already pulled it out through the prompt, but then you would just lay it and say, oh my goodness, did I just hear what I heard? Can you rewind that and do that again? I'm like, I really don't, because that was a heavy hitter for me. Like, I know it was a heavy hitter. I don't hear you write like that. So after 15, 16, 17 months, you noticed a change because I was changing along with it. So, yeah, that's it.
So you haven't said directly. I'm going to ask you more questions and you tell me. So for me, the change was AJ became more open. AJ recognized that it was actually okay to be open, and not in the sense where I'm performing and putting on a show for everyone. So I have to be open. Body language has to be open so people can receive what I'm saying, but more so being open in terms of the contents within, and people seeing a little bit, just a little bit of what's inside, rather than I just want to show who AJ is, and that's what you see and that's what you're hearing.
Right. I hate that other word, that V word.
Vulnerability. Oh, we're gonna get onto that. So you have to get real uncomfortable and comfortable with it, because we ain't even gone there yet. We're about to, though.
Yeah, it was definitely insight it was insight, and your prompts were insightful. And the more that I thought you were intuitively coming up with these ideas for me to write on, and then giving me a 3 or 4 minute time limit to boot, it became an exercise in consciousness. Mm-hmm. And then I had to peel back layers for things that I had closed down. And one brings to mind the one that you might have talked about the most, where your title was the bluer side of the sky.
Yes. One of my favorites. Mm-hmm.
One of your favorite prompts?
One of my favorite pieces from you.
Yeah, that was a heavy one, and that's where spirit takes over, because when you get to a level of safety and comfort, we seek that as men and women. We really want that. We want the safety and the comfort, and with that comes everything else. The intimacy, the long-term connection, the compatibility. All of it deals with safety and comfort, and that's where one can begin to open and become more vulnerable with being transparent and fully disclosing things that they might not have wanted to address before, but they feel the nature of the nurture, and whether you feel it with your lover or your best friend, those things are really evident and clear when you connect. I've been a disconnector for a while. I've been a detacher, a disconnector, unaffectionate. My mother was very affectionate with me, giving me hugs and kisses, but she didn't train me to kiss and hug everybody. She didn't train me to shake hands with everybody. And these are things that I had to grow accustomed to later in my life, because I wasn't throwing this love around on a frequent basis. And she protected me, kept me safe and comfortable, which is what I said, most of us seek and what we want in life. So yeah, I would say yes.
I love that. I love that we got more out of you. We went from nothing to openness, to not detaching, to even loving, and potentially being open to more affection. Such a beautiful thing. And again, I get to highlight, we get to highlight, you get to observe and be uncomfortable in speaking to that and hearing me say it back.
Yeah, I'm ready to move on. What's the next question?
Which intense, sorry, actually, while Anastasia speaks, so my rules. Yep. That's uncomfortable. Guys, it's real uncomfortable for AJ. You have no idea. And so he might sound really cool, collected over this. You can see a little bit.
Yeah, they can see it. They can see, everybody can see it. Yeah, they all can see this. For those who's looking.
I know the levels, right? The levels and how deep that is for you and to share. And it's just such a beautiful thing, because not only do you liberate yourself and give yourself the freedom to be who you are, you liberate other people. So you have to know that. And I think you do. I think the power of Clubhouse has also allowed us to understand more of our superpowers and more of how our superpowers attract people to us. And you're really magnetic. It's probably also why people are drawn to you straight out of the gate. You have a really magnetic voice, appearance really magnetic, because again, very handsome, guys. If you guys aren't seeing him, I need you to go and find the link so that you can see him and see what I'm talking about. No, he's a good looking fella, as we say over here in England. So that is always going to be a barrier, at times, because people are going to have their preconceived notions. People are going to presume things that aren't true based on your magnetism, and based on that superpower that you have and how magnified it is. There are people in this world who have this natural magnetism, and it is really luminous, it is bright, it is big, and you are one of those. And so again, this is why it makes having you on the show really important, because you are someone who a lot of people would say is your typical guy. AJ is your typical guy. And what do they really mean by this? They mean, you're a man, you're masculine, you might be quite traditional in terms of how you were brought up, and also principled, right? Disciplined, and live your life by a set of rules or codes, conducts, right? And you move in that way. And if it's not within those boundaries, you're happy to say, this isn't my lane, I'm gonna be out, right? And so in that way, it's really important for me to talk to you about these different subjects so that people can see and understand, yes, one might be what most might say is your typical guy, and actually there's absolutely nothing typical about them. And also, we shouldn't confine people to certain boxes just because society has their own perception and ideas and ideology about what a man looks like, what a man sounds like, what he should be talking about, how he should be representing himself, and how and if he should be speaking about spirituality, right? Vulnerability, and also authenticity. And so I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful for this conversation and us starting there, and that being our kind of starting point as we go further into our conversation. I could chat to you all day. So what would you say was the most important spiritual principle that you've lived by? Like, now in your adulthood, maybe you didn't realize it was a spiritual principle before, but now you can say, oh, that was definitely a spiritual principle that influenced you the most.
Trust. That's it.
That's a big one. That's a big one.
Yeah. Trust is it, because that's really hard to come by.
Yeah.
Very hard to come by, because first thing, we have to be at one with our definitions of things. Some people may deem love to be this act or this deed, and it may conflict or differ from the person that you're attempting to build something with. Same thing with respect. Same thing with loyalty. These are on a case-by-case basis. We all have different fingerprints for a reason. So we all have different scales and tiers of how we process information and what we're taught and how we learn from experiences. So trust has always been a thing for me. That's the maker or the breaker. And I haven't trusted. And I'm still trying to figure out why I don't trust nobody. When I trusted my mother, I trusted my aunties and my uncles who were taking care of me and loving on me and giving me the love that I have to give. But when you lack trust, you end up holding on to yourself, because that's the person that you go to sleep and wake up looking at,
Yeah.
So when you by yourself, you have time to work on yourself and build that self-awareness. But when you go out, how do you work on, how do you build your trust in your environment with people, you um, your children. You know, that's been the thing. So that spiritual principle for me is trust. Now, guess what? I want to tell you this. This might be off the, but I'm the guest. You the host. I was taking me a little nap, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had a dream in this nap.
Wow. Okay. Tell us.
And I got to tell you the dream before I forget it, because I don't want to think, let me tell her this before we end. But my Uncle Andre was in this dream, and he was living in a house with Miles Davis.
Okay.
And I'm in there, and they start talking. Miles says something to my Uncle Andre, and then they start fist fighting.
Like for real? Like real?
Straight up fighting. They're fighting for real. And there was another person, I don't know if it was an uncle or a friend or something, but they were there not doing nothing. And I thought, I ain't going to get in the way of this, So I'm looking at it because, I love my Uncle Andre, but I love me some Miles Davis,
Right.
So I don't know what to do. So we were in a big house, like 5 bedrooms, 4 baths. And it was one of those old houses that had rooms inside the rooms and the hidden closets and the little trap doors and different stuff. So I'm going, as they're fighting, and I'm hearing stuff knocking down and windows breaking and stuff. I'm thinking, man, this is a beautiful house. I'm looking for different places to get away from the noise, but everywhere I went, I heard them fighting. And but it was such an intriguing dream, I didn't want to jump up out of it. Oftentimes, I'm able to get up out of my dream. If it ain't to my liking, I could just push up out of there. Because when I was younger, my dreams used to last like for 5 or 6 hours. It would never break. The older you get, you start going to the bathroom in between, in the middle of the night and stuff like that. But when you're young, at least when I was young, I'd have these 6, 7, 8 hour dreams, like from the beginning of my sleep until I wake up.
Right.
I had a beginning, middle, and an end with the credits rolling. Not the credits rolling, but it was just a beautiful thing. So to have a dream in this short amount of time, because I slept for about 35 minutes or something, wink, wink. I couldn't believe that it was such a vivid dream in a short amount of time. And why the hell was Miles Davis fighting with my uncle? Were they staying together? My uncle, he plays the keyboard. He's out in San Francisco, but the age difference, the whole thing, I was just like, man. So I wanted to tell you that. I don't know how we're going to pull from that. You like to hear stories like this. And often you'll dig into it and turn it into something that I would have never thought.
So what I'm hearing is you'd like to know what that might translate to and why you might have had this dream. Now, it's interesting that you bring it up after speaking to trust.
Right.
And I want to say is so... Okay, AJ might have my head after for this. He probably won't, but I'm going to give this disclaimer because AJ, I've noticed, and I've told AJ that I've noticed this thing that he does whenever he goes. He's trying to get me to deflect, and I will not budge. I am unmoved. I've told you that before. So AJ does this thing as soon as he gets really, really deep and it's uncomfortable. like most people, he
We ain't
started to
talking about
shift.
most people. You ain't interviewing most people. You
No,
interviewing
no,
me. See,
no.
now I'm kicking
Yes.
in. Now I'm letting your
Okay.
audience know
See,
what's going on.
right. The
Mm-hmm.
ego. Yeah, this is AJ. And we do this dance all the time. He does the dance all the time. I make space for it. I enjoy
I don't be
watching it. And
dancing.
that's what it is.
Mm-mm. I don't be
So,
dancing. I be stomping.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
he, yes, as you've seen right there, this is typical example. Trust. You have to trust the process. You have to find the trust within yourself to know that whatever you do, however you do it, you were meant to do it, and that was the right thing for you to do at that time. And with that also comes, okay, I'm navigating, because you said something really poignant, and I think it's really important to highlight, trusting the self, like still, I won't say still having a resistance, or there being a resistance to trusting oneself. And so many of us have this issue. We are unable to trust ourselves, or we trust ourselves enough to where we get by, but then there's a resistance or something comes up later on, and it's difficult and challenging to navigate, and therefore difficult and challenging to navigate when we meet people and we're trying to connect with people, and we're coming up against that wall of trust, and we have to trust and we don't want to trust. And so for me, again, this dream is like, okay, you have two people that you love, right? You have two people that you
Squabbing,
love that are
squabbing,
fighting.
punching, breaking
Right. Who
stuff.
do I trust? Who do I trust enough? How do I trust myself enough to see if I can break it up, or do I back out? Right? What am I going to decide?
Or was it, do I trust Anastasia enough
To
that
tell
she
me
ain't gonna ask
something.
no wild, that she's not gonna ask no wild questions in this interview?
Mm. It's deep.
Mm.
I might, it might be wild. You tell me, and I'll see it all over your face. And we'll have our little debrief after, it is what it is. You were in this. You said, I'm doing this for you. You said, I'm gonna do this, and we're
That's
gonna
right.
keep it real. We're gonna keep it raw. And so that's
That's
what we're
right.
doing. And so sometimes you have to take the chance. I know I trust myself enough to guide us back to where we need to be if we go off track. And also, if I'm not getting the authenticity that I'm normally used to getting with you, behind closed doors.
Are you getting
So
it? Are
sorry.
you getting it?
Yeah, I'm getting all of you. We're getting, all of you. And this is all I ask for. This is all I ask for from anyone else. And so you had enough trust for me to say, I'm letting you take full reins. Don't get out of pocket, though. I'm gonna tell you beforehand. Don't get out of pocket, because then I
Are
might
you
have to.
talking to the camera? Are you
No,
talking to the camera or to your audience?
I'm talking to my audience, telling them about you telling me not to get out of pocket before the show. Like you
Oh,
said, you have full reins. However, get out of pocket and see what happens.
right, right.
And
Mm-hmm.
as I do say, I ain't scared. I know what to do, and I'm gonna find my way out of it the same way I got myself in it. And that's life. We have to trust ourselves enough. Like I was saying, we have to trust ourselves enough that we know what to do, how to get ourselves out of things, and that we're equipped. And if we're not equipped, we're gonna have angelic help, our ancestral help, who are gonna guide us towards the path of trusting with the least resistance. We just have to be open. We just have to listen. And much of our journey and connection has been that of trusting, that of being open, that of listening. When we understand that everything in our lives is connected, we can have more trust, because nothing is by chance. I don't believe in that myself. We are co-creators in our destinies, in our fates, in our realities. And so in order to execute anything, in order to move in a direction, we have to trust. We have to trust ourselves. enough to execute these things. And so everyone exhibits trust in some way, shape, or form. Some is just bigger than others. Some take more of a chance or greater leap than others. And sometimes it finds us at different times. And I think also having enough acceptance for how we trust and the rate in which we trust is key, because we can't walk around saying, well, I don't trust, so that's just gonna be it, and everyone else can do the trusting, and I'm like, no, like, we have to be open, because if we're not, then we just exclude ourselves from miracles, we exclude ourselves from connections, we exclude ourselves from opportunities in evolving. And that's what we're here to do, from just experiencing the pleasures of life, really, let's just say that. And a lot of people do exclude themselves from the pleasures of life because they walk around closed. And trust is definitely a big thing, and sometimes we are going to make decisions not knowing if trusting is the right thing to do, questioning ourselves. But again, what do they say? Faith the size of a mustard seed can move mountains. All we need is a little bit, And so it's interesting. I think it's interesting that you told the story, or the dream that you had, and we were talking about trust, because it is a deep subject. And I think it's definitely one that you're right in saying that you're still looking at, you're still working at, and it's a work in progress for many of us. I think the thing here is not to sit and dissect something. Sometimes it's just to allow things to unfold. Sometimes it's just see how we align with certain people and situations and move according to that. In that, we find our trust. So I think it's a beautiful thing that you mentioned it, and that you are open enough to say, this is something that I'm still working out and figuring out, because a lot of us are. So thanks for pushing through the uncomfortableness of that, potentially, and how it might have been uncomfortable, because trusting people is uncomfortable. Sometimes even taking a risk and therefore trusting ourselves is uncomfortable, because now we have no one to blame but ourselves. And sometimes sitting in that can be worse than being disappointed that someone disappointed us,
Right.
or didn't do what they said they were going to do. But we did this, we made that choice. It's deep, it really is. And I think, again, it's part of our spiritual journeys, it's part of how we get to connect as humans on this plane, and the fun in doing so, because it is fun. It's fun to have these conversations with you. It's fun to say whatever the hell I want to say, and hear you say whatever the hell you want to say in return. You know what I mean? I don't think I've cussed yet. I just realized I'm really
Me
prone
neither.
to doing that.
Right, me
Yeah,
neither.
we're
Mm-hmm.
really pro. Me and AJ together is terrible. We like
Completely.
sailors, okay? We
Completely.
just terrible.
Completely.
So I'm really happy that I've held it together. Because some say, yes, Anastasia has a potty mouth, and I make no apologies for it. So with that being said, AJ, I want us to go just a little bit deeper. We might have to do a part 2. We knew this was coming, so I mean,
You
it
already.
is what it is. I don't even know where the time's gone. It's crazy. And I feel like I'm just getting started. This is terrible, but we knew this was going to happen. This is what we do. This is what we do. Okay, so the big V, right? You mentioned it earlier, is one of our big themes here on Anastasia Speaks, and so is authenticity. It's the word that makes people go, oh my gosh, this again. It makes people squirm, it makes people really uncomfortable. And I want to ask you why you think that is. Why do you think vulnerability makes you uncomfortable?
It deals with the traditional raising. From what I had seen from my grandfather and uncles and different male figures in my upbringing, it was a different type of man that I was in the company of. So,
And by different type of man, what does that mean? What does that look like?
there was a old-fashioned code of ethics in relationships and with the domestic responsibility and taking care of the children and as they would say, bringing home the bacon,
Yeah.
being the breadwinner. So roles have shifted as we've moved on into society, and it's started to become more advanced. With it comes new changes, new ideas, and equal share of certain responsibilities. And sometimes those responsibilities shift to the point of being the polar opposite of what they used to be before.
Yeah.
And yeah, you hear about the men don't cry and don't share their feelings and share their emotions. And recently, I was in your room and I heard that topic being addressed about the position today from one of the people in your room said we're 50% male, 50% female. So if we're rejecting the feminine side, then we're living only half the experience. And I needed to have that unpacked a little bit more.
Mm.
Because I've been living a full experience, regardless of the percentage of the DNA or the genetic code split 50. Some we see that are more, maybe more 100% on the male, 100% on the female. It's not necessarily 50-50, and what I've seen and what I've experienced brought me to a point where I'm up in this damn app and I finish a poem and somebody says, AJ, thank you for your vulnerability. And I said, man, you better get out of here with that bullshit.
And okay.
I'm not in here. I'm not in here with that. I'm doing this piece, but it doesn't even have to be a piece where there's full disclosure about a sheltered experience or a tucked memory for someone to say it. It would just be thank you for your vulnerability, and I'll think, is this something that's just a trending topic? Because it seems to me that any chance you can with someone like me, I was hearing that word thrown around so loosely about everything, about love, erotic poetry, conscious, militant, hardcore stuff. I have a wide range of expression about anything that's on my mind or anything I've dealt with. I'm able to, I'm blessed with the ability to articulate it in telling stories, writing poetry, whether it's hip hop, if it's writing a script for a film, science fiction, drama, autobiographical, whatever it is, I can tell that. But I was just hearing vulnerability just left and right, and it just turned me off. Like I don't even want to explore that shit. You know what I mean? Because it's just too. It's the group think about the vulnerability. Now, back to trust, back to safety, comfort. The whole subject matter of this talk that we've been having right now is having to answer questions that have gone unanswered. And then in our living, in our personal experiences, we have to come to terms or come to grips with our definitions of vulnerability,
Yeah.
of trust,
Yeah.
of love, of loyalty,
Yeah.
of pride. You know, if pride is a sin, then is having pride of who you are and where you came from, is that sinful? You know, who told us that? Who laid that out? What group or what body or what book gives us the tried and true gospel on what's what? So each person has to uh, be discerning in figuring out what these definitions and what these attributes mean to them.
Yeah.
So vulnerability has always been the running joke up in the rooms where I will admonish someone. I say, hey, whatever you say, if you unmute that microphone and you say the V word, I'm
It's
on
on to the
your head.
next.
I'm on your head.
Mm.
You know, because I want to know what makes you think that was vulnerability.
Okay. So what, okay. And so in that, even if they thought you were being vulnerable, so what? What's the big deal? Why is that even a thing for you?
Okay, we're going back to you now.
Mm-hmm.
One of the last pieces blew us out of the sky.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is more apropos in this section of questioning here than that piece. Because again, we're going back to correlating and connecting everything. I asked the question of I don't know why I don't trust anybody. That poem was the unlocker of me figuring out a high portion of why I don't. And it was because of my high school relationship, my first girlfriend.
Mm.
And when I wrote to your prompt and had the 3 minutes, I wrote so quickly and so detailed and with such vibrant meaning
Yeah.
because I had tucked this away and you had found a combination to the lock through saying, all right, everybody, I'm going to give you 3 minutes. This prompt is going to be the bluer side of the sky. And it triggered everything. I went in a far rewind. I didn't touch any relationship other than my first one. And then, boom, everything hit. That was where the trust, the vulnerability, the safety, the comfort, and all those things I felt as a teenager got breached. All it had to do was just be one move made. And the one move was made. I shared it, told you the story. You got emotional. Everybody was in there like, yo, what's up with this? She did
it. So I didn't want to interrupt you, but there's several things that I wanted to say. And I didn't do anything. I gave a prompt. However, I didn't do the unlocking, you did. You got to a place, yes, I was maybe a part of the comfort and the safety in a sense, and the trust was present. So that combination, I do agree, helped to unlock and trigger something that had been repressed, but that had nothing to do with me. That was you. That
No,
was
you
you
did.
in.
You did because the first prompt that you
Mm-hmm.
gave the first line of my poem was referencing the blue side of the sky. This is something that you didn't remember. I referenced a cloud, sky, everything. The second prompt that came after was the blue side of the sky. So I was already slightly open from your first prompt.
Okay.
So the first line of my poem from your prompt was me referencing that blue sky.
I know, but
so you did it.
No, you keep saying that, and I don't know why. However, you are the one who was open. I didn't force you to be open. No one forces AJ to do anything. You were open.
You get a little forceful. Yeah, you get a little forceful. You up there. You up there as close to someone can get to making a motherfucker do. Right. That's you. And look, it's an hour and 2 minutes. You didn't want to do over an hour.
Oh, AJ, so we're going to have to. No, we're going to have to. We're going to have to because there's too much. So here's the thing. No one forces you to do anything. Yes, I understand my superpowers. I'm really self-aware. And so because of that, it allows me to move in ways most won't. And I'm honest and upfront about my intentions and what the deal is, I would say. And so because of that, again, there's an openness and transparency that gets created with others in my presence, because I say it how I feel it and see it, because I think that we should be the fullest expressions of ourselves in all moments, because that's how I live a magical life over here, through that. And so because people are always going to gravitate to that and people are always going to glisten as I glisten, they feel like, okay, I feel enough liberation to do the same, and it's exciting and we love it. And again, you get to not only experience the pleasures of life and the joy and the laughter and the connection, but there's now a sense of evolution happening. There's a growth happening. There's a awareness happening. There is a deeper understanding with self that's happening through this process. And most of it, yes, might be unconscious, but I'm aware of it. And so in all of that, it feels great to the soul because you're evolving. So people are going to do what makes them feel good. You know what I mean? Right. And so in that moment for you on Clubhouse, even though there was definitely going to be feelings of uncomfortableness, there's always going to be a sense of relief when we have a release. And so that happened for you. And yes, you spoke about it because you felt moved to and comfortable to, but nobody forced you. That came out because it was necessary and spirit was moving, your spirit was moving through you to release this, because it wasn't serving you. It wasn't serving you to hold on to.
And then remember, right after that, the very next week, you came with another prompt. I came with another story. And then you opened it up. See, the thing is, we all good up in sacred spaces, writing our poetry, and we got our little 3 or 4 minute. What this woman does, though, when something touches her and it moves her and it inspires a response, she's not going to push to the next person. And she's really open on a couple of very diplomatic, very warm and inviting to everybody. Some people, though, she will stop the process and then super blast someone's poem, have them do it twice, maybe 3 times, and she will unpack it. So that's what, when I said that's on you, it means that it's not a blame as much as it is the insightfulness that I talked about. Because if I just glossed over the 3 minutes, I wouldn't have had a chance to prep. You saying what I knew you were going to say, asking questions, asking me to do it over. Mr. Wone, what happened? What's really happening? What's going on? So that part is what I'm talking about, because you will shed light. If I wanted to just go ahead and open up the door, peek in it, and then close it real quick, you're going to say, no. Keep that open. Bring it all the way in and let us all, let us all see that. Let us all experience that. Some of us may need to check that out. Yeah.
AJ didn't tell the whole story, and hopefully he doesn't mind me sharing a little bit more of the story in case you're wondering what the poem was about. So I gave this prompt. As many of you may or may not know, I give prompts for poetry, and that's art therapy, and I do this weekly. This one day, I gave the prompt, the blue side of the sky or something. It's like when I channel and when I have my sessions, therapy sessions, counseling sessions, I don't remember. I remember feelings and I might remember moments, but for the most part, like, I can't keep everything that comes into my safe container. It all kind of just leaves me, it goes through me, and that's it, you know. There's a rapport between me and AJ, and things that touch him on an energetic level, a spiritual level, I feel them, and it's really potent for me. And so it's hard when you have that sort of connection with someone to be unmoved when something is moving through them or passing through them, or they're going through something, because it's just so strong in your field. And I got emotional because consciously and unconsciously he was unlocking something within himself, relaying to us his sort of heartbreak about his girlfriend, you know, first serious girlfriend, someone that you had big hopes for and dreams for and would do anything for, and she kind of broke your heart, right, by being with another guy, and you witnessing that. You're just so cute. And that moment was really telling, because for as much as he didn't express or want to express any sort of active anger about it, it was there. You just, sometimes you can't, there's nothing you can do about it. It shows. And we all heard it, and we were all kind of floored because it just kind of came out of him, and we're left like, oh my goodness, you know, this was so, yes, entertaining for some, but really, really big. You felt the energy in the room. And, you know, unless you have ill intent, and that's why I create the kind of spaces I do, the people that are in them also uphold my principles and intentions, which is it's sacred, that we're going to give people their time and opportunity, and we're going to hold space, and we're going to be as loving, as compassionate, as understanding and empathetic as we can. And so when that shift came, of course people were going to rally around you and say, hey, we heard that, we felt you, we saw it, right, even if we were not looking at you. And so it would be disingenuous for us to just ignore it or to move along because it was so big that we felt it, right? And so that's the thing about vulnerability. Like, we might run from it, and it might be the word that people are uncomfortable by, but it's a part of our life because shifts happen and we get uncomfortable. We, as humans, we don't really like change, but that's inevitable, you know. And there's certain things that are repressed and that we do repress, that have to come up, and that was definitely one of those moments. And I wanted to commend you for allowing them, for sharing that moment with us, because you could have chose, after you wrote, you recognized the kind of piece that you wrote, you could have said, I'm out of here, even though I would have brought your ass back and said, where are you going? No, you reading that piece. I would have said that. However, you just completely surrendered is the word. You completely surrendered to the process. And this is the kind of magic that happens when you do surrender, everyone. This is the kind of connections you build when you trust, when you are open, when you are transparent, and you allow yourself to be vulnerable. Magic happens. And so magic happened in that room. And also between us and also everyone else in that space. And it gave everyone else the liberation to come as they are, to be as they are, and also to express whatever it was that needed to be expressed,
Right.
unknowingly and knowingly. So that was very much a gift for all of us. In some ways, you answered about why you might shy away from vulnerability, and that being because of your upbringing. But today, obviously, there are things that happen in our childhood and how we're raised that we have to be the parents to ourselves, right? And as a father, you know that there are things that we couldn't look to our mother and fathers for, so we had to go within and kind of mother and father our inner child in a way. Now to say we kind of had or did the best with what we had. Yes, we had parents, but they couldn't kind of navigate that. So now we're having to navigate it as an adult. And so recognizing that, is really huge, that sometimes we might have absences or a lack of in our childhood of vulnerability, let's say, but we have the opportunity, we can create the opportunity as adults to navigate that for ourselves, so long as we're open to it and we can acknowledge that. So it was important for me to acknowledge that. It was important for me to break that down so you can acknowledge it and help everyone else acknowledge it for themselves, because yes, something was happening for you, but it was happening for all of us as well. And that is part of the gift that you gave to us. And when I receive gifts, I appreciate my gifts. So I had to appreciate the gift that was, and I had to make it known that it was a gift, and so you could appreciate it too. And I think that's the beauty, right? And in our speaking, in our conversations, in our getting to know one another and connecting, I would say that's definitely been something that you've seen as a positive and something to take away from vulnerability. For as much as maybe you might not like it or want to use the word or care to, that in itself, I think, is an incentive for most people to be vulnerable.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
But that's it. It's the safety. It's the comfort level. If I say this, what's the repercussion? Is there something that I'm willing to deal with when there's going to be an after effect from this? If I openly say, I believe the genesis of my mistrust in everybody from square one came from Hollywood High School, the moment that happened at Dodger Stadium. When I saw Blue Side of the Sky, I thought of the Dodgers baseball team being there with her, and me looking and seeing that, wow, it couldn't be a bluer sky today. And when I articulated my personal experience attached to the emotion of the moment, that's what got you, and this is where it's been a mastery of expression, and it's been a mastery of the concealment of expression. There's a lot of things I don't say that become even more impactful for some, and detachment, that the unaffected experiences that come from, see, my family gave me an incredible amount of love. And we talked about this before. So then when I was shipped out into the world as a man, when I lived independently, free from the family, the world wasn't like that.
Mm.
The world wasn't feeling you. You know what I mean? Bay Boy Blue, AJ Two, with the Tweety Bird lips and the big old blue eyes.
Oh my gosh.
Wasn't nobody feeling that. Nobody was tripping on that. You just out there, just a participant in this world as it evolves. You're gonna come, you're gonna go, and that was a heavy pill. Everybody didn't feel the same way that Auntie Anita and Aunt Janet and Aunt Sharon felt, and that puts that extra, that shield on
Yeah.
you. And now I don't want to be sharing nothing. When I get the gift of expression through poetry and storytelling and songwriting and screenwriting, then you make the choice again. Do I want to tell my stories in a concealed way, in a discreet way, or do I want to just outwardly blast my shit out and then do it almost in an antagonistic way, like I dare you to say something after I'm done? And that's what you are used to when I first came in. Don't be reviewing my stuff. Don't tell me it's vulnerable. Don't tell me it's hot, it's dope. Nah, let's move on to the next person.
Yeah.
You see, that's not a healthy way to do it. If you're here on a platform where you're in the company of other people, you use your poetry as a tool of healing or a tool of advice for those that either have experienced or shared in that moment or may need some insight on how to deal with it differently. Or they just might enjoy
expression.
The art. Yeah, just the art of wordcraft, So that's what it's been, and then of course Clubhouse had a wild and woolly way of sharing and showing me that there's the same component offline as it is on, which is when you elevate.
Not every space is
when you elevate and escalate and you start to expand and build upon the gifts that you already have, and you have this broad reach through your gift, then there's always going to breed detractors.
Yeah.
And when you are in the midst of your greatness, you have to understand that that's a part of the nature of elevation. Is if you sit and try to convince or seek validation or acceptance from everybody, you'll be hit with the reality that will never happen. You have to know that it's by nature that you're going to have people that will be affected by the fact that you're doing things that they're incapable of doing, or things that they dream of doing and they can only sit back and hate you for it.
Yeah.
And I also take this time to commend you, your insight. We need to seek you out for very, very heartfelt, genuine, and authentic readings. And you're new to the world. You still are figuring things, but many things that you have embarked upon, you already have it figured out. So we here, your community, through Sacred Spaces and Anastasia Speaks, and any and every endeavor that you do, I'll always be here to support you and to be a part of everything that you do, because I support you, and you're safe and you protected with me to be as vulnerable as you want to be, and we've done that. And that's what is very important is we need our team. We need our people to accept and embrace our visions in order for us to expand it out into the world. Because if more of us believe it, then so shall it happen out there for us. So I thank you for being consistent, for being thorough with not just our friendship, but the other friendships that you've maintained and the people that you've inspired and helped through literary expression, and doing it consistently for well over a year and and expanded. Look at you now. You're doing a podcast.
Yes,
You
interview with
got your,
AJ
you
Wone.
got your. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm very proud of you, and this has been right in line with the universe. Talked about the trust, safety, comfort,
Yeah.
the validation, vulnerability. You know, it's all there.
Again, you touched on something really important. You said, in not so many words, correct me if I'm wrong, we need vulnerability. Would you say that we need vulnerability
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
in our relationships? Okay. And, I think it's big because there is this conversation. Do we need it? Do men and women need to be, and do we need to be vulnerable? Is there a need for it? Is there a place for it? And I'm recognizing in this conversation with you that maybe Clubhouse, maybe us connecting was really your true wake up to how vulnerability does play a big part in our world and in our personal relationships, you know?
Oh, you trying to convert me? Okay, before I didn't answer the
I'm not
question.
trying to
An
convert.
hour and a half later, you trying to get me to still convert? See, you slick like that. You cold. You cold. That's why. That's why I like you. You know, that's that you cold with it. You ain't gonna get me to budge on that. Say the clubhouse made you more vulnerable. Hell no.
No, that's not what I said. I'm saying,
My nice window was closed. It's an hour and 30 minutes. My nice window is
listen.
closed. So now we're getting into the part two of where now we cussing and going crazy.
We're
And
getting into the next part. Okay, fine. So I'm gonna honor that. Me and AJ had this conversation because we know we can go for a long time. There's so much to talk about, but it's all good. Everything happens the way that it's meant to, right? And I'm really appreciative. I appreciate you being open. I appreciate you coming on here with me, you being my first guest. You have brought value to Clubhouse in sacred spaces and just period on Clubhouse and in the world just by being you. There's so much more to unpack in the life of AJ, and this was just kind of the tip of the iceberg, So I'm really grateful. Thank you for joining me today. It's been great having you. It's always a fun time. I don't know where the time goes, like I said. So we are going to close out with some famous prompts, okay? So I'm going to give the prompt and you have to finish the line in a sentence. No thinking about it, you just kind of go with it. Is that all right?
yes.
Okay. So the best part of vulnerability is
being true to your emotions, being true to the things that you feel free in talking about, opening it up in order to heal it or to close the case on something that you need to address.
I love it. Okay. Relationships and connections with others provide me with.
Happiness,
Oh,
with joy, and just wanting to repeat, wash, rinse, and repeat all the time, and just have that because that's a form of like a family reunion, that kind of feeling. And I feel that with you. You know, the relationship and the connection is why we hang so tough, and we have that comfortability. You know, you heard me say comfortability, not vulnerable. Vulnerable ain't in my vocabulary. When I said comfortability,
Guys, you heard it. All you have to do is rewind and you'll hear him. So it's okay. That was a beautiful answer. Okay, last one. Life is, no, second to last one. Life is
love.
love is
You.
Yay! Thank you for joining us, AJ. I mean, yes, it's been a pleasure, guys. You know, look out for part 2. You are a pleasure. We have such a great time. It's Kiki's all around. Tell us where people can find you for now and get in touch with you and connect with you.
AJ Wone. You find that everywhere. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. You just type in AJ Wone. That's the initials and then One, WONE. And that's where you'll see everything. The projects. That's where you can reach out to me. Yeah.
Perfect, guys. Go and check this gorgeous man out for all that he does. He's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Not just a pretty face. And a nice voice. To all our listeners, thank you for listening. Don't forget to share and subscribe. Please check out AJ on all the platforms. You can find him everywhere. Okay, you can join the tribe and connect over on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Clubhouse, searching Anastasia Speaks, or go to anastasiaspeaks.com for more. Remember, seeking more means you can no longer stay small. Thank you for listening, and don't forget, delay is not denial. Love louder to release all fear, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, AJ.
Thank you.